Facebook founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg has a New Year's message for the world. This is fine. We're all fine here, thanks. How are you? Hey everybody, I'm Steve Green. This is Right Angle with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. Listen, gents, Facebook, as you know, had just a terrible year. Privacy scandal after privacy scandal all started back in April. We're going to get so deplatformed for this. Started back in April or May with the Cambridge Analytica scandal, and the European Union's still working that out. I think they're going to fine him jillions of dollars or whatever it is. But that didn't stop him from saying in his New Year's message to the world, this is a quote, "We fundamentally altered our DNA to focus more on preventing harm in all our services, and we've systematically shifted a large portion of our company to work on preventing harm. We now have more than 30,000 people working on safety and invest billions of dollars in security yearly." This is despite the fact that he promised to release privacy software back in May and has yet to deliver even a hint of when that might be coming out. Bill, the angle that gets me on this, I guess, is the regulatory angle. We tend to be free market, right-leaning libertarian types, but the urge to use antitrust as a big old club to beat Zuckerberg and Facebook into line, it's kind of tempting, isn't it, after scandal after scandal?
It is a private company, and undoubtedly we signed agreements to all of this when we signed the end user agreement that nobody read because it's unreadable and in itself is a joke, and everybody knows it's a joke. Yeah. So the question is, on what grounds would you regulate this? On what grounds would you be morally justified in regulating this from a conservative point of view? And as you've mentioned, that'd have to be a pretty high bar for me.
Yeah.
As much as I loathe the fact that they're suppressing our videos to such a degree, you would need a pretty high bar. But the reason that I think they should be regulated is because they're suppressing our videos to such a degree. And I mean this sincerely. Yeah. And I wouldn't go at it, personally for me, I wouldn't go at it as an antitrust issue. I might go at it as a speech issue, but I would probably, look, I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on TV. I would go at it either as a freedom of speech issue, or I would go at it as a fraud issue. What I mean by fraud is, my understanding is that if people like the Facebook page, that means that the messages that we put out or whatever we put on the Facebook page gets spread out to the people who want to see it. There is no doubt, none, that Facebook selectively decides which messages they like and dislike based on their own personal political preferences. They write algorithms that determine how widely spread these messages get. And to me, I think that's fraudulent. If they mention somewhere in the end user agreement that we will determine what messages get spread and we will personally determine whether your post gets distributed wide or not wide based on our own personal political preferences, I find it hard to believe that would be in the end user agreement. But in any event, that's what they're doing. And I don't think there's any question about it.
Yeah, in fact, they're bragging about this is what we're doing. And I'm going to get to that in a second.
That's right.
Yeah, they brag about it.
That's right. So for me, again, not as a lawyer, but my attitude would be, look, a monopoly, generally speaking, if you're going to go after a monopoly genuinely means that you can't get this anywhere else. There are only one set of electrical wires to your house. You can't have a startup company. You can have somebody buying some time on the wires, but you're not going to have somebody rewire your entire city. Really, you're stuck with the infrastructure. And these are monopolies that are bad because they simply, it's not a question of them not allowing or competing. There is no way to compete and drive costs down and so on. I don't know if Facebook falls into that category. But certainly, without question, they are doing several things that are unethical, and that I think alone warrants the regulation of it. Not only are they selectively determining which content gets spread and how much, they're also recording vast amounts of data, none of which is is disclosed to us. There's never been a point where Facebook comes out and says, here's how much we know about you. And to me, that is also a form of a fraudulent activity. And if they're gathering personal data about me without my approval, and certainly without my being informed about it, then I consider that to be a criminal activity, and I'd go after them on those grounds.
Yeah, and it's not just that they're collecting the data; they're giving it away to companies like Amazon, Cambridge Analytica, and all the rest without your consent, your knowledge.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Scott, Bill raised a great point about who decides, and there was a New York Times piece just in the last week or two. I think it was by Max Fisher. I want to read you a part of this story. Fisher writes, every other Tuesday morning, several dozen Facebook employees gather over breakfast to come up with the rules of who sees what, hashing out what the site's 2 billion users should be allowed to say. The guidelines that emerge from these meetings are sent out to 15,000 moderators around the world. The closely held rules, that is, these are opaque. Nobody knows what these rules are except for Facebook. These closely held rules are extensive, and they make the company a far more powerful arbiter of global speech than has been publicly recognized or acknowledged by the company itself.
Well, what do you know?
Scott, geez, I really have deep philosophical issues with antitrust legislation and the way it is wielded against private companies. But what do you do with a company with this much power? Anything?
I think ultimately the arbiters of this are not going to be the federal government or the content producers like us. It's going to be the end users. It's when people who enjoy Facebook decide that there's something wrong with it. And most of the caterwauling I hear on this topic comes from either people who are in political positions or people who are in positions like us who say, they're restricting our content, blah, blah, blah. But I haven't really heard a loud outcry among Facebook users, and primarily because they don't know what they don't know. They can't actually tell what they're not getting. And so it's really hard to determine if I'm being deprived of something, and there's always a plausible explanation for why you're not seeing something. I have something, I forget what it is now, but a bunch of people who have followed my Facebook profile, and then I have a smaller bunch of people who followed my Facebook page, but I'm sure that most of those people don't even know I exist anymore. They signed up at one time, and I just get lost in the torrent that flows past them every day. So I think things are going to start changing when Facebook becomes a distasteful product to people. Now, I have actually gone onto my phone within the last month or so. I've deleted the Facebook app. I've deleted the Twitter app. I've deleted the MeWe app. I've deleted Instagram. I don't have any social networking apps on my phone anymore. And it was in response to a USA Today column by Glenn Reynolds, who basically said he had done the same thing and life got better. And it certainly did. Now, that's not to say I still don't use it. I mean, I'm on Facebook from time to time when I'm on the computer. Obviously, when we post links to this show, I'm engaged and involved in that process. But I don't think that the government is going to be able to attack them on monopoly grounds for the reasons Bill has already enunciated. I don't think that they're going to be able to get them on free speech grounds because basically it's not an issue of government restraint of speech. I don't think that they're going to be able to get them on fraud grounds because I'm sure that their end user agreement is a blanket statement that basically says we can do anything we want. Yeah. All your data belong to us. And so I really think that the legal remedies for this, or the legislative remedies for this, are going to be nothing more than a press release opportunity for some clever politician. Where I think things are really going to change is when people say, I feel the benefit of seeing my grandbaby's pictures doesn't outweigh the idea that there's some guy in Cleveland who's combing through my personal data right now to figure out what kind of spam to send me.
Yeah.
Can I add one thing here?
Oh, yeah, please do.
It's just a little announcement. Scott and I were talking about this earlier. I believe that starting now, including this episode, we are no longer going to be uploading videos directly to Facebook. We're going to be including a direct link to the YouTube video, which means you'll still be able to watch the videos directly, but it'll be hosted on YouTube. And the reason we're going to do this is because YouTube and Google, who are no fans of conservative comment, Nevertheless, are fans of being paid by revenue, by advertisers. And because we have that little 5-second click-through commercial at the beginning of our segments, we get, I wouldn't say it's a huge segment. It's probably around 10-15% of our total revenues comes from advertising on YouTube. But if you take all of the views on Facebook and ship them over to YouTube, then that increases the YouTube revenues significantly by another 50% or so. So my feeling is, hey, look, if these guys are going to be battering our message and suppressing it on Facebook, we might as well go to YouTube where they're going to be battering and suppressing our message, but at least we get paid for the minuscule amount that they leak out.
Well, you
got to follow the money here. Yeah, sorry, Scott.
Right after Journal School, I was what was called a stringer, which means I was a freelance writer for local newspapers, and I would get paid $15 a story for being a stringer. And at that time, I was so thrilled to see my byline that I didn't even think about the $15 pittance that I was being paid. It was just like, look, it says by Scott Ott right underneath the headline. And so I was all excited about that. But after you do that for a while, you begin to think, well, I deserve a byline and I deserve more than $15. And I think at a certain point, people are excited when they first start posting content on YouTube and on Facebook, and it gets likes and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, ooh, wow, that's really satisfying. And then after a while, you're like, who cares about that? Show me the money.
That's right. Listen, folks, there's kind of a pyramid of power over Facebook content. At the very bottom, you have the unofficial layer of power, and that's the outrage mob that use social media like Facebook and Twitter to get these companies to shut down messages. And then the next layer up in the pyramid would be Facebook's 30,000 moderators who enforce the rules selected by the people at the top of the pyramid, who are how many did I say there were? However
15,
many people.
15,000.
No, but above that, the people who write the rules at their every other week meeting at Facebook. Yeah, I'm not sure you solve this problem by putting an even smaller layer at the top of the federal government. I'm not sure that is a part of the solution. However, that doesn't mean it isn't going to happen. Tech blogger John Gruber is a pretty left-leaning guy, but very sharp about tech stuff. He wrote earlier this week, late last week, he said he believes that Facebook is the most dangerous company in the world and ought to be broken up and then severely, his word, severely regulated. But barring that, he says, this is what my idea of regulation would entail. Every user of every social network should be able to see and easily find the entirety of what the network knows about them and delete any and all of it whenever they want. And this is essentially the tool that Facebook promised to give users back in April or May and is probably never actually going to deliver. And something like this is so popular that it's going to be one of the few things that Democrats and Republicans in this split Congress can actually agree on. So it may not be the smart thing to do, but I will bet you that regulation is coming to Facebook, and it's coming hard. And they'll have nobody to blame but Mark Zuckerberg. So that is your right angle on that, made possible by the members of BillWhittle.com. If you like what you see, please click on over. We would love to have you as one of our producers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.